As you can see, I'm at the construction site of Chinmaya Vishwa Vidyapeeth, our Chinmaya University, and work is going on at full speed. What I'm overlooking is this beautiful valley, the view from the girls' hostel. The beauty of this campus is going to be the wonderful ambience for studies, for growth, for nature is at its best here. And if you look around, the view that I am seeing is spectacular. The luscious greenery of Kerala. Just look at the view. How inspiring to be studying in a university where it gives you such a natural, beautiful environment for us to be inspired, to grow. I'm very happy to see going on, and we pray that by the middle of next year, we can start accommodating the students at the Chinmaya University.
Hari Om. Welcome to this Ola Sanskrita Sahitya lecture number 2. Today we are going to deal with Bhasa, Mahakavi Bhasa, his life, his works, his authorship, and his impactful compositions, literary compositions. Before that, let me invoke the goddess Saraswati. Surasura Sevita Pada Pankaja, Kare Virajat Kamaniya Pustaka, Virinchi Patni Kamala Sanasthita, Saraswati Nrityatu Vachime Sada. Hari Om. Before starting, I will take you back in the last century. Last century, maybe 1906. This was the year when a young scholar from Tamraparani river bank in Chennai, Tiruvenavelli village, who was the curator of the Department of Publication of Sanskrit Manuscripts in Travancore state erstwhile, he found a bunch of manuscripts, 10 of them, and he was awestruck. What was it? It was something which the whole world was looking at. These were the dramas by Mahakavi Bhasa. He had only 10 then. Then he discovered again and again, and he found some more manuscripts in Kerala itself. Totally, there were 13 Trivandrum Plays. So these are the 13 Trivandrum Plays, which gave a paradigm shift to the Sanskrit literature, science or history of classical Sanskrit literature per se. Why people were waiting for Bhasa? The Kavi Kulaguru Kalidasa, for example, who is like uncrowned king of the Sanskrit literature, he, in his very first drama, in the prologue, he writes, Katham Bhasa Kaviputra Saumillakadinam Prabandhan Atikramya Vartamana Kavehe Kalidasasya Kritau Parishado Bahumanaha. Why and how this Sabha, this Parishad, will have any interest to watch the drama of a new budding poet like Kalidasa when they have already been used to watching the dramas of Bhasa, Kaviputra, Saumillaka. This is the greatest of tribute, one Mahakavi respectfully referring to another Mahakavi who was his predecessor. So, and people were wondering, in Kalidasa's Malavika Agnimitram, we have this Prastavana, but there was no trace of any of Bhasa's works. So this T. Ganapati Shastri, who found these manuscripts in the Trivendram, he worked on these manuscripts for 3 years. The manuscripts were written in Malayalam script. The language was Sanskrit, the script was Malayalam. He deciphered, decoded, and published these after 3 years in 1912, and ek tehelka mach gaya. In the whole world, it was like something, a very warm, welcoming thing, but very unexpected. So for that Ganapati Shastri, we owe a great deal. It is only for him that we can owe all, we gratefully acknowledge his work, his tenacity, his perseverance, his laborious work in the area of manuscriptology that brought to light the hidden dramas of Bhasa. Till then, in Kerala itself, the Chakyars were performing some of the plays like Urubhangam, Karanabharam, Swapnavasavadattam without knowing that these are the plays by Mahakavi Bhasa. So, to this Mahakavi Bhasa, we are paying our ode. And here is a book by V. Venkatachalam, published by Sahitya Academy, Bhasa, a monograph he was asked to write by Sahitya Academy, and he has written a very beautiful verse in the praise of Mahamahopadhyay T. Ganapati Shastri. I will start today's lecture with that. Samudra kuhara sthita praguna mauktikanveshana nadishna janasahasa prathita tamra parni tate Swajanma charitarthayan gahana tala patro dadhehe taladu dadharachirat tarala bhasa mukta phalam. For our benefit, V. Venkatachalam has already translated this. So let me not translate in my prose. Let me read out the versical translation done by Venkatachalam. One who found the twinkling Bhasa pearl long buried in seas of palm leaf scripts, deep, untamed, and lo, made good his birth in Tamraparni famed all around the world for daring divers brave, unfolding pearls galore from ocean's hidden cave. Talapatro dadhehe, there was an ocean of palm leaf manuscripts. And this T. Ganapati Shastri, like an expert diver, the word used is Nadishnaha. Very, very profound Sanskrit word. Nadishnaha literally means Nadi plus Sna. Sna is to take bath. One who takes bath in the river should be called Nadishna, if you go by etymological meaning of the word. But it doesn't restrict itself only to that. One who takes bath in the river, one who knows the currents of the river, one who can go to the other shore of the river without much difficulty, he is Nadishna, and therefore Nadishna is a good diver who can dive deep to the Nadi or the ocean and take out the pearls therefrom. So this Talapatra Mahodadhi, there was an ocean of these palm leaf manuscripts, and like a brave diver, Ganapati Shastri took a dive into that, and what he found was Tarala Bhasa Mukta Phalam. Very nice, very Tarala, transparent Mukta, very transparent pearl in the form of Bhasa's Kavyas. So this is the Bhasa Prashna, and this is the Bhasa Mauktika, which the diver in the form of T. Ganapati Shastri got and made it open to all of us. You know, there is a saying in there are in the Tarka Shastra we say Vada, Jalpa, Vivada, Vitanda, etc., etc. When somebody discovers something, there are people who will pounce upon him. Oh, what you have discovered is not true at all. It's not genuine. Because they are in the side of Kalidasa and they won't even think of any poet greater or greatest, a predecessor that too than Kalidasa. With all respect to the Kavikula Guru Kalidasa, Bhasa's Nataka Chakra, to call something as Nataka Chakra, you need to have minimum 6, 7, 8, etc. dramas. Bhasas wrote 13 plays. So this number is more than Kalidasa, Bhobhuti, Harsha, Shudraka put together. And therefore this is Bhasa Nataka Chakra. Now the problem here was that Kalidasa was already placed by the critics and the great so-called Sanskrit scholars in the 5th century Christian era. That was Chandragupta II who bore the title Vikramaditya. And their simple logic for that was Vikramourvashiyam, one of the best dramas of Kalidasa. This is a tribute to his patron called Vikramaditya, that is Chandragupta II. Number 2 logical argument was that whatever picture of society Kalidasa has portrayed throughout his dramas and poems gives a very healthy picture of the society. And that was there during the Gupta period, which is regarded as the golden era of India. And therefore, this must be the Gupta age. And if Kalidasa is placed in the 5th century AD, and if Kalidasa is referring to Bhasa with all respect, then he must be somewhere, maybe separated by a century at the most, or 2 centuries. And therefore, Bhasa could be in 3rd century Christian era, 2nd or 3rd century Christian era, not before that. And then Ganapati Shastri, the amount of work he has put into this is marvelous, is unparalleled. It is indefatigable labor which he has put in to discover and to declare to the world of scholars that this is the work of Bhasa. Unequivocally, all the 13 dramas can be ascribed to Bhasa and Bhasa alone. It's a single authorship. For that, what could be the aid? It could be the external evidences, it could be the internal evidences. If you see the internal evidences, Bhasa has nowhere, not even the prologue, not even the Prastavana, he has mentioned his own name as Bhasa. As we saw just now, Kalidasa mentioned Vartamana Kavehe Kalidasasya Kriti. Kalidasa mentions his name. Bhasa never mentioned his name. How do you know that this is composed by Bhasa? We come across a 9th century poet called Rajashekhara. And Rajashekhara, he has clearly, in very unambiguous terms, he has written, that this Natakai Parikshipte, Chekai Parikshipte, etc. and Swapnavasavadatasya Dahako Bhunna Pavakaha. Those Swapnavasavadatta in that drama, we'll see it eventually. Vasavadatta was burnt. It was a rumor spread by Amatya Yogandharayana. But then Rajashekhara says in clear terms that though Vasavadatta was burnt, really speaking, she is unburnt, because the fire could not even touch Swapnavasavadatta. Swapnavasavadatasya dahakaha abhunna pavakaha. The pavaka, the fire, could not burn Swapnavasavadatta. And before that, in the first line, he has clearly mentioned the name of the author as Bhasa. So one thing was damn sure, that Swapnavasavadatta is written by Bhasa. What about the other 12 plays? And Swapnavasavadattam happened to be one of the plays in this bundle of 10 manuscripts. That alone does not suffice to prove that all other dramas are by Bhasa. Only one drama could be by Bhasa. What about the others? And then T. Ganapati Shastri has done that exercise, which even today is like a benchmark, of the textual criticism and the manuscriptological studies in the world. He with a microscope, he has done all the study, the details of all these dramas, and then he declared that yes, all the other dramas are also by Bhasa. And there are so many evidences which he provides. First of all, most of his dramas, they start with Nandyante tatah pravishati sutradharaha. If you see any of Kalidasa's drama, or for that matter, Harsha or Shudraka or Vishakhadatta, all dramas start with a Nandi, a benedictory verse, and then starts the Prastavana, where Sutradhara and the Nati, they enter, and he is the stage manager. Sutradhara is the stage manager, and he presents the drama to the Parishad, to the spectators. Now here, the first line itself starts with Nandyante tatah pravishati sutradharaha. All the dramas have this as a common beginning. So Nandi is not shown on the stage. Nandi is performed behind the screen, which is Nepatya. There is a lot, many details are described in Bharata's Natya Shastra, which is termed as Purvaranga. So that the entire Purvaranga was done behind the Javanika, behind the curtain. Here in Bhasa's plays, even the Nandi is performed behind the curtain, and then the Sutradhara enters. And normally, he recites one Mangala verse as not as a Nandi, but as a salutation to either Ganapati or Devi or somebody. And then he says, I want to do something, I want to stage a drama. But then he says, Ai kinnu khalumaya vidnyapana vyagre. See, there is some confusion, there is some kolahala. Let me see what it is. And then he would give an ear. Oh, somebody is calling somebody. And then he would, indicate the entry of that person on the stage, and he will take an exit. A very short prastavana. Normally, all the Sanskrit dramas have a long prastavana giving you the details of the kavi, of the occasion on which it is staged and all that. Here, no such thing. And then Sutradhara would go and the Patra will enter. So that is another thing. There are many such words which are repeatedly seen throughout the 13 plays of Bhasa. The Kanchuki's name, or the Pratihari's name, the doorkeeper's name, they are similar. If the dramas found in one bundle of manuscripts, a codex it is called, if they are by different authors, how could the names of the persons, the characters be the same? It should be by the same author, right? Then there are so many forms, the grammatical forms, which in today's, in the Paninian way of grammar, we can call them unpaninian. Some of the unpaninian grammatical forms are found in Bhasa's plays. That again is one more thing. There are so many phrases which you find repeatedly occurring and reoccurring in all the 13 plays. Most of the plays, they are derived from the Ramayana or the Mahabharata. 6 of them from Mahabharata. So all these, they give, you know, they indicate to one thing, that Bhasa has written all these plays. Now, despite all his laborious work, there were scholars who opposed him. And they said, no, no, this is not by Bhasa. If I read out the names, you will be surprised. Such great scholars, and they say, oh, no, no, these are not written by Bhasa. See, for example, scholars like Pisharati from Kerala itself, K.R. Pisharati, A.K. Pisharati, Dr. C.K. Raja, Kunnan Raja, then Professor M. Ramakrishna Kavi. He was a great scholar from Baroda who had the critical edition of Ramayana from Oriental Institute of Baroda published. So Ramakrishna Kavi, then Mahamahopadhyay P.V. Kane. He opposed to the authorship of Bhasa to these 13 plays. So these were even C.R. Devdhar, who has published the complete works of Kalidasa in 2 volumes. In 1 volume containing all the poems, the 2 Mahakavyas, 2 Khandakavyas, and 1 volume in the 3 dramas, the 3 dramas of Kalidasa. So all these scholars, they opposed Bhasa's authorship, but there are some other scholars like Woolner, Silvan Levy, and Suktankar, the great person who did the Bhandarkar Oriental Research Institute's Mahabharata's critical edition. And he has, a 1 full volume. If you read on the internet, you can go through the Prolegomenon, the prologue for the critical edition of Mahabharata. It itself comprises of 300, 400 pages, a big volume. Prologue, and that's a masterpiece of critical edition of anything. So Suktankar was there, then K.B. Dhruva, then K.P. Jaiswal, Dikshitar, all these scholars, they were pro-Bhasa and some were against Bhasa. So there is a, like a dichotomy, pro-Bhaside and anti-Bhaside. So these are, the scholars are divided into these 2. Now, what do you know about Bhasa? About Kalidasa, it is said, no, Kalidasa must have been belonging to Ujjain area, because he has so many nice descriptions of Ujjaini in his, especially in the Meghaduta and other poems and all. So what could be the original place of Bhasa? Who he must have been? All conjectures, all guesses. From his dramas, what we understand is there are so many allusions to and mentions of the northern cities like Ujjaini, Koshambi, then Kashi, Shravasti, Ayodhya. So these are the various places, all northern places normally he refers to. Then how come his dramas were found in the southern tip of India, in the Travancore, and nothing was found in the northern region? Were there not any manuscript libraries there? Yes, they were. As I told in the very first lecture, in the northern India, most of the part was invaded, Akranta, by the foreign invaders, and they burnt all the literary works of the great scholars. So Bhasa's kritis might have got burnt in those invasions, but in the south, they could not reach the southern tip so much, and therefore they were preserved. And they were preserved especially by the Chakyars, the oldest theatrical art performance of India. So that was another thing. And therefore it could have been preserved. But despite these confusions, despite these differences of opinion, we can assign all the 13 plays to Bhasa. The greatest example, which was, this is about Bhasa, and Rajasekhara, he says that he must have, Bhasa must have belonged to a washerman's family. Like Valmiki came from a fisherman family, I mean, a robber's family. Vyasa came from fisherman's family. So he was Dhavaka. And he says, Rajashekara in his Kavi Vimarsha, Karanam tu kavitvasya na sampanna kulinata. What is the karana? What is the cause of kavya? Who can be a great poet? It is not only a birth in good family makes you a good poet, because dhavakopihi yad bhasaha kavinam agrimo bhavat. Though born in the family of washermen, Bhasa became kavinam agrimaha, the pioneer of all the poets. So, but this Dhavakatva or the washerman lineage of Bhasa is again questioned by the scholars, and they say he may be born in a, he might have been born in a washerman's family, but what he has depicted is all the Puranas and the Sanatana Dharma. And this is because of the depiction throughout his works that his kritis were burnt. And therefore, what we get is the Varnashrama Dharma, what we get is the Pancharatra tradition. In fact, one of his plays he has named as Pancharatra, based on Mahabharata. Sri Krishna is the highest deity for him, and therefore he must have been a very learned scholar. Whosoever, the family doesn't matter at all. Like his Karana also said, Daivayattam kule janma, madayattam tu paurusham. The janma, getting birth in a particular family, is Daivayattam, it is destiny. But what I can achieve thereafter depends totally on me. Madayattam tu paurusham. So Bhasa has proved his kartrutva through his works. Now to place Bhasa before, we were discussing about Kalidasa, and because Kalidasa's date is fixed to, 5th century CE, Bhasa was placed somewhere near, but not before that. In the pre-Christian era, he cannot be put at all. That was the scholar's opinion. To that, Ganapati Shastri has replied in a very clear manner, quoting a very good illustration, not from any other literary source, but from Arthashastra of Kautilya. Now, Arthashastra of Kautilya, without any doubt, belongs to the Chandragupta of Maurya dynasty. So, pre-Christian era, during Alexander's time, so pre-Christian era, and Arthashastra has quoted one verse saying he has borrowed this verse from an earlier author. He doesn't mention the author, but he has borrowed it from an earlier literary master, and that verse is seen in Pratidnya Yaugandharayana, one of the dramas of Bhasa based on Udayana theme, Katha. Swapnavasavadatta and Pratidnya Yaugandharayana, these are the two dramas based on Udayana Katha. And the verse reads as this is the first act, second verse in Pratidnya. Navam Sharavam Salilais Supurnam Susamskrutam Darbhakrutottariyam Tattasya Mabhun Narakam Sagached Yo Bhartrupindasya Kritena Yudhyet. The soldiers who do not fight, the soldiers who have partaken the salt and food for the master, then they will go to Naraka, the hell. That is the purport of this verse, and Chanakya, obviously, Kautilya has used it to inspire and motivate the Sena of Chandragupta. That time this verse occurs, and this is a clear indication that Bhasa precedes even Kautilya, or maybe a senior contemporary of Kautilya, so that we can place him safely in the 3rd century or 4th century before the Common Era. Therefore, in my first lecture, I said we start this Samskrita Sahitya Ola lecture series covering almost a period of 2000 years from 4th century before the Common Era to 17th century after the Common Era or AD. We end with Jagannatha Pandita, we start with Mahakavi Bhasa. So we can place him safely in 2000 before the Common Era, the 3rd or the 4th century. Now, as Kalidasa has mentioned him with reverence, similarly, Banabhatta has mentioned him with full respect. And he says in Harshacharita, Sutradhara kritarambhaihi natakair bahubhumikaihi sapatakair yasholebhe bhaso devakulairiva. Yasholebhe bhasaha. Bhasa attained fame. With what? There are 3 adjectives and there is pan, shlesha on each of these because there is an upama, simile, devakulaihi iva. Like the temples, Devakula, Devalaya. Like the Devalaya, as the great temples become very famous, Bhasa's kritis became famous. There are 3 adjectives, Sutradhara Kritarambhaihi. All his dramas start with Sutradhara, not with Nandi. Right? Tatah Nandyante Tatah Pravishati Sutradharaha. So Sutradhara Kritarambhaihi. Bahubhumikaihi. There are so many characters. Bahubhumikaihi. And Sapatakaihi. There are Pataka Sthanakas. This is a very technical term in Natya Shastra. I shall be providing you the notes thereafter, you know, about Prastavana, about Nepatya, about Pataka, Sthana, etc. Pataka is a dramatic irony. Dramatic irony. See, the characters are saying something on the stage openly, and suddenly another character comes in and he is in a hurry, he wants to speak something. So the first word which he speaks and the last word spoken by the character existing on the stage, they put together, they give you some chamatkriti, vaichitrya. Best examples we can find as and when we read the dramas, we can find these dramatic ironies. And therefore, there are so many pataka sthanakas in Bhasa's dramas. So this applies to Bhasa. How Devakula, the same epithets can be applied. Sutradhara kritarambhaihi. All the temples are built by the Sutradhara because the area is measured by Sutra. Sutra, Danda, Angula, right? These were the measurements, no measuring tapes like Sutra. So Sutradhara, the architect would have especially the Sutra stretched out to measure the area of the Devakula. Bahubhumikaihi. There are multiple bhumikas, multiple stories for the Devakula. I mean, you see the Vimana, you see the Gopuram, they have multiple layers. Bahubhumika, bhumika is a layer. Bhumika is a stara. Bhumika is what you can say, a story. So, Bahubhumikaihi. And Sapatakaihi, as the Devakulas, they can be seen from afar by the Dvaja. Pataka is a Dvaja, banner. So he has compared the dramas of Bhasa with Devakula. So that much sanctity is also got attached to the dramas. There is a great scholar, Govinda Keshav Bhatt. There was a great scholar. I was fortunate to have learnt under him in Mumbai, in Elphinstone College, G.K. Bhatt. And he had a great penchant, and you know, he always used to say, I love Bhasa more than Kalidasa. There are like some Bhasa fellows and some are like Kalidasa fellows, and there is one more stream, Bhavabhuti fellows are also there. So, but then he has done a lot of work on Bhasa study. There is a great book by A.D. Pusalkar on Bhasa study. Very nice books are there. So he has commented on Bahubhumikaihi as it is not only that, you know, Bhasa's plays have multiple characters, number of characters and all. He himself must have played multiple roles in his dramas. Either he has played the roles or he has directed the dramas, and therefore Bahubhumikaihi is very significant for him. Then Rajashekharas we saw Vakpati Raja calls Bhasa Jwalan Mitra. We have one more Shudraka's Nataka. Shudraka is like Shimuka, the Andhra Britya king of 1st century before the Common Era. And he has written a very beautiful drama, Mritchakatikam. on which there was a Hindi movie as well. Utsav was a Hindi movie based on that. Of course, a lot of liberty was taken in the movie making, but still. So this Mrichakatikam is based on Daridra Charudatta written by Bhasa. Daridra Charudatta is only of 4 acts. Perhaps it was the last play of Bhasa, and it might have been incomplete, left incomplete by him. Dandi also plays a very great tribute to Bhasa, and perhaps I would read something from Dandi, translated of course by Venkatachalamji. Another thing is, throughout the Bhasa's plays, we have, if you see his period as 3rd or 4th century before the Common Era, that was immediately 1 or 2 centuries after Buddha and a few centuries after Mahavira. So the Jainism and Buddhism were prevalent. Jainism and Buddhism were prevalent, but because Bhasa is an upholder of the Sanatana Dharma, he has propounded all the good things of Sanatana Dharma. He has highlighted the epic personalities and the Purana personalities and all. And he has used Nagnakshapanaka or Shakya Shramanaka in his plays in a little bit contemptuous manner, little bit derogatory sense. That again is one of the reasons why his plays were burnt. Because he was not welcome in northern India, where the Buddhism spread so like a wildfire, right? Because it got Rajashraya and all. And some scholars go to an extent to saying that Yogandharayana, a very shrewd minister of King Udayana, who is portrayed in Swapnavasavadatta and Pratidnya Yogandharayana, that character might have been inspired from the younger contemporary of Bhasa, that is Kautilya himself. Kautilya, Tarka Karkasha, and he will aim only for the welfare of the society. Praja sukhe sukham radnyaha, prajanam cha hite hitam. That's what Kautilya says. It is the first concept of welfare state propounded by Kautilya, and that Kautilya, we can see the reflection of Kautilya's characteristics in the character portrayed by Bhasa as Yogandharayana. So this is regarding the Bhasa things. And the internal evidences, I told you there are so many, like Tata Pravishati Sutradharaha. One more thing was, whenever a drama is seen, a drama is seen from the beginning till the end. The beginning is Nandi and the end is Bharatavakya. End is always Bharatavakya. And Bharatavakya is like a colophon in a manuscript. It is called Pushpika in the manuscriptology. Whenever you are reading some manuscripts, the end, who has written it, when he has written it, and whose Shishya, whose son, all that, and in which year, which Shake, all that will be written in the Pushpika. That helps us to decide the time of that scribe, that Lekhanika. Similarly, Bharatavakya of every drama can help us decide the time of the author. And Bharatavakyas of most of his dramas, they end with Mahim Ekatapatram Rajasimho Prashastunaha. Rajasimha Prashastunaha. Let the king Rajasimha, who is ruling over the entire world like a sovereign king, Eka Atapatram. Atapatra is an umbrella. Atapatra, Atapatrayate iti Atapatram. So one who holds the entire earth under one Raja Chhatra, under one royal umbrella, let that Rajasimha rule this earth. So Rajasimho Prashastunaha. Now, okay, Rajasimha's name is there, and that is commonly found in all the dramas. So authorship can be decided. But how can you decide on the date of Bhasa thereby? Who is this Rajasimha? There are different opinions. Some people say that the king Narasimha Varman of Pallava dynasty in South India, Pallava dynasty, he ruled in 2nd or 3rd century in the Common Era, and he bore the title Rajasimha. So he must be the king. These are the people, you know, who place Bhasa in the 2nd or 3rd century AD and not BCE. They put him in the CE, in the Christian era, on the basis of Rajasimha, who is none other but Narasimha Varman of the Pallava dynasty. But T. Ganapati Shastri, Venkatachalam, Pusalkar, and so many other scholars have proved. I mean, this is a very technical question, you know. There are so many intricate problems, and if I go on telling that, this monograph will not be enough. We'll have to go through 3-4 different books for that. And that is more or less a critical apparatus. And we are here to enjoy the kritis of the poets with their rasa, alankara, dhvani, vakrokti, guna, riti, etc., and take the meaning of everything. And you know, we are here to repay the debt, rina, of all these great masters who have obliged us in one or the other way. We always have this kalpana of runatraya, deva runa, pitru runa, and rishi runa. This rishi runa is the runa, the debt of all our predecessors, our masters. So we are paying the debt not only to Bhasa, but to Ganapati Shastri and to people like Venkatachalam, Pusalkar, and others who have opened this gallery to all of us. And therefore, we will say this Rajasimha will go by what Ganapati Shastri and others say. And that was like an unparalleled example from Arthashastra. And Arthashastra, nobody has any doubt that it can be placed in the 3rd century or 4th century before the Common Era. Then what is the problem of placing Bhasa as a contemporary, you know, a senior contemporary of Kautilya? So that is very unequivocal terms, we can say that. Another thing is to place him in the earlier era is many scenes throughout his dramas, you know, they are the scenes which are prohibited to be enacted or shown on the stage in Bharata's Natya Shastra. Bharata Muni, who has written the Natya Shastra, the written documented text of Natya Shastra is quite late. I mean, scholars put him nearly 2nd BC to 2nd AD. These 400 periods could be the time of the written document of Natya Shastra, but the earlier versions of Natya Shastra must have been prevalent. Even Panini refers to Bhikshu Natasutra Yoho. So before Panini, there were some Natasutrani, there were some Bhikshu Sutrani, Sannyasa Sutrani. Okay, so even Panini refers to Natasutra. So, and he refers to one Natakakara, Shilalin. Shilalin is a Natasutrakara. Okay, so this must be very old. And now, what are the things which Bharata has prohibited on the stage to be enacted? He says no wars or battles, no exact fights should not be shown on the stage. And most of the dramas, when we come to Veni Samharam especially, some of our students must have studied Veni Samharam, right? So Veni Samharam especially, the war information is given through Vishkambhaka or Praveshaka. The information is carried on to the spectators, but the battle as such is not shown. Bhasa shows it. Bhasa shows the battle. Bharata again says that no scenes where no people are sleeping on the stage. That should not be shown, sleeping on the stage. And here Vasavadatta, Tatah Pravishati Supta Vasavadatta. Now how can Supta Vasavadatta enter? Right? The stage direction reads Tatah Pravishati Suptothita or Supta Prasupta Vasavadatta. That means when the curtain goes up or curtain goes away, sleeping Vasavadatta on the stage. If she is sleeping, she can't enter. If she is entering, she can't sleep. Isn't it? So, Supta Vasavadatta Katham Pravishet. iti sandehe. So this is the stage direction, but how to enact? All the drama have stage worthiness. They are good to be enacted and performed. They are not written just for the sake of poetry. They are written really for the enactment of the plays. Okay, so that is there. No scenes like sleep or battle or even death. And here on Urubanga, we see Duryodhana dying. Duryodhana is dying, he is crippled because his thighs are broken by Bhimasena. He comes crawling on the stage and he is sinking moment by moment. And that is shown by Bhasa. So the death scene, the sleep scene, and all these battle scenes are shown by Bhasa. This is another very solid evidence to prove him before the Christian era. Otherwise, all the later dramatists would strictly pertain and adhere to the rules and regulations prescribed by Bharata. They won't deviate even the slightest from the rules and regulations, which Bhasa does. Now, with all this information about Bhasa, what are the 13 plays that we call it as Nataka Chakra? Kalidasa has written 3 dramas. Harsha has written 3 dramas. Bhavabhuti has written 3 dramas. None of these dramatists can boast of having a Nataka Chakra. It's only Bhasa. Because there are 13, number matters, 13 plays. And these 13 plays could be classified under different heads. There are Ramayana plays. Ramayana is the main theme, Mahabharata is the other theme. In the first lecture, we saw how Ramayana and Mahabharata are the Upajivya Granthas, and the rest of the authors, they based their kritis on Ramayana, Mahabharata and Purana. They are Upajivya. Like I said, Itihasottamadasmat Jayante Kavi Buddhayaha. Okay. So Ramayana plays, there are 2. One is Pratima, the other is Abhisheka. Pratima and Abhisheka. Very interesting dramas, both of them. Abhisheka is coronation, and Abhisheka has, it ends with Rama's coronation as a king. So that is the Abhisheka. But where does it start on Ramayana theme? It starts with the Vali-Sugriva fight. And after killing Vali, Sugriva is coronated. So that is the first Abhisheka it speaks of. Then after Rama Ravana Yoho Yuddham, Vibhishana gets coronated as the king of Lanka. That is the second coronation. And after coming back to Ayodhya, Rama gets coronated. That is the third coronation. Abhisheka is more than significant because it speaks of 3 consecrations, Abhishekas, Raja Abhishekas. Pratima, on the other hand, is a very unique drama. In fact, people say, that if Bhasa were to write only Swapnavasavadatta or only Pratima, even then he would have been a famous dramatist. That is the quality of Pratima and that is the quality of Swapna. So Pratima, the theme is very unique and he has tried to uplift the so-called villainous characters of the epics. Here we find Kaikeyi's character getting a very different treatment with Bhasa's skills. The thing is, Pratima is an image. Like Deva Pratima we say, okay? Pratima Griha is a shala, is a griha, okay? Is a building, a constructed thing where a hall, you can say, where the pratimas are kept. Now here in this particular drama, the pratimas of the Ikshvaku kings are kept. And the thing is, after Dasharatha passes away, Bharata comes from his Matula Griha to Ayodhya, right? On the way, he stops at a Pratima Griha. because it's a long journey in the Ratha. So they are stopping in between, right? The Rathas are stopping in between. In the outskirts of Ayodhya, the main city, there is a Devakula, there is a Pratima Griha, and his chariot stops there, for the horses also need some rest. And then while the horses are being taken care of, Bharata happens to visit the Pratima Griha, and the person, the attendant there, he is mentioning all the illustrious kings of Ikshvakukula. One after the other, one after the other, one after the other. And then after Aja, he sees the Pratima of Dasharatha. And Bharata says, Bharata is not informed that his father is no more. He asked the Devakulika, Jivatamapi Pratima Dharyate va? Is Pratima done for the living people? The Devakulika says no. That is the way how Bharata comes to know that his father has passed away. So that's a very, twist, in the entire drama. And then he comes to Ayodhya, and there he meets Kaikeyi, and Kaikeyi I will not disclose everything now because we will be reading Pratima someday or the other. Okay, so that is Pratima, 2 plays on Ramayana. After certain time, I think in the beginning of 20th century, somebody in Gujarat found a manuscript called Yajnaphala, and he claimed it to be written by Bhasa. Now, Yajnaphala is obviously the Yajna performed by Dasharatha, the Putra Kameshti Yajna, and as a phala, he got the 4 Kumaras. And he argues that some of the internal evidences, there are structural similarities and all that, but other scholars, most of the scholarly world has refuted that to be assigned to Bhasa. Otherwise, there would have been 14 plays of Bhasa had Yajnaphala been counted. So 2 plays of Ramayana. There are 6 plays based on Mahabharata. We will be starting next Sunday from Karnabharam. Okay. And in the notes which will be sent to you, the link for the Karnabharam will also be sent to you, shared with you, because we'll need a text. You also will need a text. We are reading line by line, Pankta Madhyanam, Panktishaha. So if you don't have the text, don't worry, Google Swami. So the Internet Archives has all these dramas. So the links have been provided with English translation to you. So you can open that and attend the lectures from next time. So for the Mahabharata, Karnabharam, we'll start with that. Then we'll do Urubhangam of Duryodhana. Duryodhana's thighs are smashed, Urubhangam. Then Madhyama Vyayoga. This is again a very unique drama. I won't tell much about it now. Let the suspense prevail. Okay. Madhyama Vyayoga. Then Duta Vakya. Duta Vakya is a drama where Bhagavan Shri Krishna himself comes as a Duta to the court of Kauravas, to have some negotiation and peace activities and all that. So Shri Krishna coming as a Duta, his Vakya, that is Duta Vakya, very unique drama, wherein, his Ayudhas, Shankha, Chakra, Gada, they are portrayed as characters on the stage. Very beautiful, very ingenious, very creative of Bhasa, Duta Vakya. Then something else which is not there in the original Mahabharata, Duta Ghatotkacha. Ghatotkacha coming as a Duta, come on. We never have Ghatotkacha as a Duta by Vyasa, but Bhasa, that is what, Jo na dekhe Ravi, so dekhe Kavi. Kavis have like apare kavya samsare kavire ko prajapati yathasmai rochate vishwam tathedam parivartate. He is the Prajapati. He is the creator. Whatever he likes, he can create in that manner. Saduta Ghatotkacha. Then Pancharatra. This is again a very unique drama. Very different. In Karnabhara, we see the good side of Karna. In Urubhangam, we see the nobler side of Duryodhana. In Pratima, we see the nobler side of Kaikeyi. In Pancharatra, again, we have a very nobler facet of Duryodhana. The thing is, Duryodhana is performing a sacrifice, and Drona is the Purohita, and Drona, for Guru Dakshina, he asks, what should I give? And then Drona asks, you give the half of the kingdom to the Pandavas. Pandavas have already been sent to exile. And the 13th, after 13 years of Vanavasa, the 14th one is Ajñatavasa, incognito for them, has started. Duryodhana promises Drona that if within 5 nights I can find them, I will give them half the kingdom. Pancharatra. If within 5 nights you can find where the Pandavas are, I am ready to give half the kingdom to them. And then there is Gograhana Parva, based on the Mahabharata Gograhana Parva. The cattle of Piratas, they are driven away and the Pandavas come, and Arjuna in the form of Brihannala fights. And then Drona recognizes them as Pandavas, and Duryodhana says, yes, I will give half the kingdom to the Pandavas. Very different. Not in cognizance and not in unison with what Vyasa says. But see, this is a human psychology. I always feel Bhasa is a great student of human psychology. Every person has this, not only the black and white shade, there is always a gray shade to everything. Don't stamp anyone with a black or white. Kaikeyi is not villain. Duryodhana is not villain. There are nobler traits of characteristics to their personality as well. And that psychoanalysis is done by Bhasa throughout all his dramas. That is a unique thing which you cannot find done by any other great dramatist. In this context, I'm reminded, I did one small dissertation after my MA on Bharata's Natya Shastra and the ancient Greek dramas. So the Greek dramatist called Aeschylus is somewhat like Bhasa. I mean, Bhasa could be like Aeschylus, you can say, reading the minds of the characters and portraying them in a nobler shades. So that is Pancharatra. And Balacharitam, the Bala Leelas of Krishna, Harivamsha, it is based on Harivamsha, which is regarded as killer of Mahabharata. So I have included it in Mahabharata plays. So these are the Mahabharata dramas. Okay, Urubhanga, Karnabhara, Urubhanga, Madhyama Vyayoga, Dutavakya, Duta Ghatotkacha, Pancharatra, and Balacharita, if you add, it becomes 7. Then some fictitious kathas, fiction, it is Avimaraka and Charudattam. Charudattam and Avimaraka are fictitious katha. They are basically katha, not Akhyayika. Akhyayika is a narration of true things, true facts, happenings. It has historical data, historicity, antiquity, whereas Katha doesn't have it. Katha is fictitious. For example, Kadambari by Banavatta is a Katha, whereas Harshacharita is an Akhyayika. Okay. So that is fiction. And historical drama, there are 2, Pratidnya Yogandharayana and Swapnavasavadattam. Pratidnya Yogandharayanam and Swapnavasavadattam. So these are the dramas of Bhasa. The 13 dramas of Bhasa, these are these. In Saraswati Kanthabharana, Bhoja, the great, what you can say, poetician, Saraswati Kanthabharana and Rasagangadhara, and Saraswati Kanthabharana basically, he writes, Nirdosham gunavat kavyam alankarair alankritam rasanvitam kavih kuruvan kirtim pritim cha vindati. A poet who composes poems. Kavya, as we saw in the last lecture, Kavya is not restricted to the versical poetical compositions. Kavya, the connotation is any literary composition. And therefore we have Drishya Kavya as Nataka, Shravya Kavya as the Kavya. In Shravya again we have Gadya, Padya. So even Gadya of Banabhatta is called Kavya. It is called Gadya Kavya because there is poetry in that. So Bhoja says, one who composes nirdosham, dosharahitam. There are Kavya doshas given by Mammata, Vamana, etc. Gunavad, having gunas like prasada, oja, madhurya, kanti, etc. These are the gunas. Alankara, alankara are figures of speeches. They could be like upama, utpreksha, rupakadayaha, which are called arthalankara, and shlesha, anuprasa, yamakadayaha, which are called shabdalankara. So there are many types of figures of speech, words and meaning. And the kavya which has rasa, the kavya which is nirdosha, flawless, which has the poetic qualities, which is having some figures of speech here and there scattered, and having rasa, vakyam rasatmakam kavyam. So rasanvitam, such a literary composition, whosoever does, kirtim pritim cha vindati, he gets priti, the love of all the followers, plus kirti. Kirti yashaha. And nasti tesham yashakkaye jara maranajam bhayam. In their yashasharira, yashakkaya, there is no fear of oldness, aging, jara or marana. The body may have this jara and mrityu, but yashakkaya, the kirti rupi sharira, is always amara, immortal. And that is why Bhasa, even after centuries and millennia has passed, Bhasa continues to rule over the literary kingdom. Unfortunately, however, there is too much of hype. Of course, I love Kalidasa, but too much of hype about Kavikula Guru Kalidasa, and therefore Bhasa is overshadowed. Bhasa did not get his own due, his own credit. Let us now, through this Ola Samskrita Sahitya lecture series, starting with Bhasa especially, let us try to give him his own credit, which he is waiting for in the Swargaloka for so many centuries. Hari Om. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. I have to make one announcement. All those who have gathered here online, I'm really humbled by your overwhelming response. Till yesterday, it was 1,050, the registered participants. I'm really humbled by your response. And I am tempted, I'm motivated to take something on site. So on the 4th Saturday of July, 23rd and 24th of July, I will be taking my favorite Kalidasa, his Khandakavyas. Khandakavyas of Kalidasa, a 2 days on-site camp in this sacred ambience of Adishankara Nilayam. Enjoy the literary beauty of Ritusamhara, Meghaduta and Hamsa Sandesha by a greatest Vedantin called Vedanta Deshika, the great Vaishnava scholar. While we are enjoying the Kerala monsoons, let us enjoy Ritusamhara and Meghaduta. So those who can manage it, it's a 4th Saturday, Sunday. Please take up your travel. Please book your tickets and come to SIF campus. Hari Om.